What led to the fall of the Western Roman Empire? When we talk about the Roman Empire's decline, it is often used as always of discussing ourselves. From those who argue that moral decline led to the fall of Rome, to those who claim that the Roman Empire was never actually fell. All of these arguments have more to do with modern concerns than with properly understanding the Roman context. A series of changes to Roman society made it increasingly incapable of fending off threats, which include Christianity, internal issues, and external challenges. Point 1. In Roman context, they saw many Christians' monotheism as sacrilegious, leading them to blame the Christians for the empire's decline. This issue became the inspiration for Augustine's City of Gold. During the Roman era, Christianity was seen as a risk to the empire, because it was seen as sacrilegious. As time went on, Christianity dominated Roman culture. Moral culture. Romans' virtues and piety versus Christianity. Virtue and piety. So the difference with the Romans' virtues and piety and the Christians' virtues and piety was that the Roman virtues was based off of manliness and valor and bravery, etc., whereas the Christians' values were completely different. So what they would try to focus on was faith, hope, and love, etc. And that's the problem, is that when they don't both agree with something, they go separate directions, which splits off Rome into different parts. The problem was that the under pressure people stuck to the culture, the culture's cardinal virtues, which was the Roman, and Christians were different. For example, suicide would be a good example of this. The Romans saw suicide as a virtue and a very honorable thing to do, and was an escape for an unbearable reality. Christians saw it very different. People who attempted suicide were excluded from church services and were buried they were buried outside of the graveyards before their bodies were dragged through the streets and thrown away. The different approaches to suicide provide a window into their different worldviews. Christianity was external, where Rome's were state's existence and power. Since their views were very different, Christianity is at an individual at a collectivist worldview. A quote by Paul Hertog goes, quote, "According to pagan censures, quote, Christians were affiliated with the repudiation of pleasure, the breaking of homage," end quote. Point 2. While people at the time might have blamed Christianity for their decline of Rome's power, it is clear from an analysis of Rome's finances that mistakes were being made. Most importantly, its devaluation of its currencies, which rose to bartering as removing benefits from having an empire, but maintaining the expenses. Simply put, Rome got big and needed a big army and didn't have enough money, so it created more money, which made it impossible to do business. The denarius was a standard coin of ancient Rome. It was about worth 1 day's of a work for a skilled craftsman. These coins were made almost of all pure silver, while a finite number of silver, only so many of these could be made. They realized that they could decrease the purity of silver and make more of them. By the final years of the empire, these coins barely had 5% silver. Adding more coins decreased the value and caused a huge inflation of 1,000%. To add on top of this, they started taxing much higher. The economy was paralyzed. People started bartering. During the crisis of the 3rd century, most of the 50 emperors were killed and unable to protect its citizens. the Western world would cease to exist by 476 AD. A quote from Edward Gibbon says, quote, "The decline of Rome was the natural and inevitable effect of immoderate greatness. Unquote. After Christianity had diminished, Rome's moral commitment to its imperial ideals and inflation had revived citizens' faith in the state's ability to protect them. New immigrant communities began to grow in power, but eventually leaving them incapable of overthrowing the state itself. The most straightforward theory for Western Rome's shape collapse pins the fall on a string of military losses. By the 300s, barbarians, Grove, just like the Goths, had gotten inside of its borders. In 410, the Visigoth king Alaric sacked the city of Rome. The emperor was under threat for several decades until 455 by the Vandals, until finally 476 the Germanic leader revolted and deposed Emperor Romulus Augustulus. From then on, no Roman emperor would ever rule from a post in Italy, leading many to cite 476 as the year the Western Roman Empire suffered its death blow. A quote from Stephen R. Padden says, quote, "The Roman state survived. The liberty of the Roman people did not. When freedom became impossible in the West of the 5th century, with the barbarian invasions, people took advantage of the possibility of change," unquote. So eventually, the city of Rome got so bad that the people were actually looking forward to the other people to sack Rome and take over, because they knew that when that would happen, there would be change, and everything was just kind of at a bad standstill in Rome. So, although when we talk about the Roman Empire's decline, it is often used as a way of discussing ourselves. From those who argue that moral decline led to the fall of Rome, to those who claim that the Roman Empire never actually fell, all of these arguments have more to do with modern concerns than properly understanding the Roman context. A series of changes to Roman society made it increasingly incapable of fending off threats, which was Christianity, internal issues, and external challenges. Thank you.